Welcome back to Evolve Your Intimacy, the podcast where we talk honestly about love, sex, connection, conflict, and the emotional patterns shaping our most intimate relationships. I'm Dr. Stephanie, licensed professional counselor, certified sex therapist, and founder of Evolve Your Intimacy. This episode is a special bonus conversation in our ongoing series where we've been exploring how mental health affects intimate relationships. Throughout this series, we've talked about anxiety, depression, burnout, trauma, OCD, ADHD, bipolar, and personality disorders. But today we're discussing something that quietly shows up in almost every one of our most important conversations, and that's desire. More specifically, what happens when desire seems to disappear? So many people assume low desire is a sexual problem, but often it isn't. It's a stress problem. It's a mental load. It's an identity problem, a burnout problem, a motherhood problem. And for many women, it's the result of carrying so much responsibility that there is little room left for pleasure. Today's guest is Carolyn Hood, a certified sex therapist, licensed clinical social worker, nonprofit CEO, mother of three, and author of the upcoming book, Sex, Begets Sex, Reclaiming Desire as an Act of Feminine Empowerment. Carolyn brings a professional expertise and personal experience to this conversation as we explore why desire changes, why women often feel disconnected from their erotic selves, and how couples can reclaim intimacy in the middle of life, not some fantasy version of it. Carolyn, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I know we've had so many issues trying to get you here, but you're here, and that's what's important.
Here we are. Technology be damned. We're here. We're ready to go.
So, Carolyn, before we dive into these topics, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write Sex Begets Sex.
Sure. I'm so excited to be here. I am writing from a place of living this reality. I'm 43 years old. I have 3 children. I'm in a long-term marriage. My partner and I are just about to celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary at the end of this month.
Oh, wow.
And so I know it's kind of shocking. I'm not that old. It's impossible.
Right. Yeah.
I think I've come to this place from a clinical background of always being interested in human behavior and human psychology. What makes us tick? What makes us go around and operate in this space, in this world? Always recognizing sexuality and intimacy and desire as something that seemed very universal and yet also extremely individual. And universal and normal, and also yet sort of so taboo and shaming. And I just am fascinated by this part of our lives and want to particularly give women this opportunity to bring conversations that often either aren't happening at all or happening behind the scenes or behind closed doors, and bring them out and say, hey, this is so normal. Let's really talk and let's help each other.
Yeah. And it is important, especially since we're going through it ourselves. We're all just trying to make it. For you, what made you feel like this book needed to exist? So, for example, like, what were your women in therapy? What were you hearing from them?
Yeah, I think a lot of it really comes from the women I just talked to in my regular life, friends and family, and just these conversations. Even I went to get a haircut, and all of a sudden I was hearing about a woman's problem with her relationship and sexual dysfunction. And was it physical? Was it desire? Was it libido? What is it? And it's probably all of it.
It's
really,
everything. It's all of it. Yes.
Yeah. So what I hear specifically, and what the audience of this book is really looking at these women sort of in this midlife zone, often, but not always, but in a long-term relationship, maybe a decade plus, they have kids, they have the life they've always dreamed of. They've got the kids, the husband, the car, the job, the dog, the picket fence. And yet it's not firing on all cylinders. And they don't know why, because at the foundation, they still very much love their partner, but they don't want their partner anymore, but they want to want. And that's who this book is for. This hang on, I miss this piece of me. I miss this piece of us, but I'm almost clueless. And I think maybe it's just gone. That's who I'm speaking to, because I think it's so common. I hear a different version of the same story over and over. I'm sure you do too.
Mine tend to come with a little bit more flair, details.
Okay.
Some of the things
Yeah, sure.
I hear. I'm like, okay, maybe that's your inside voice. No, I'm just kidding. One of the things that immediately caught my attention was your statement that desire doesn't necessarily disappear, but it often gets buried under life. So let's start there.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't think of that as controversial at all, but I've been in enough conversations where people go, wow, okay, this is interesting. I think it's really desire, libido. Listen, we've got stress, we've got caregiving, we've got hormonal changes, we've got potentially resentment or buildup or lack of equality when it comes to the mental load in the household, just physical aging. There's so many factors that come into play. And I think often in a couple, unfortunately, we prioritize so many other things in our life, our kids, the groceries, the job, all of it. And we look at sex and intimacy as the thing that we do when there's time, or the thing we do if everything else is perfectly stable and pulled together. And that's where I think it's not happening, because life is just so full. One of the reasons I think is really clear to say, okay, desire isn't gone. There is hope. It's just drifted or it's buried. We can look to porn and OnlyFans and romantasy and dark romance and just this huge, particularly romantasy and erotica. Women are just buying these books, the shelves. So there is desire. It's just not, it's living in fiction. And I think that's really hopeful. We get to bring it back.
Many women say things like, I love my partner. I'm attracted to them. I just never think about sex anymore. Why do you think that happens?
I think there's a lot to it. And you mentioned stress is a big thing. Stress is like the killer of all, right? It's like, oh, you can't sleep.
Stress does kill everything.
Your gut health, all of it. You can point to stress and go, okay, that's probably a factor.
Yeah.
Certainly stress is a thing. I think also there's more and more research that's coming into play around that difference between responsive desire and spontaneous desire, right? That Emily Nagoski really kind of brought to life in Come As You Are, and people really grabbed onto this idea that women don't sort of instantaneously feel like they want to have sex. They sort of have to get themselves into position to respond.
Yeah.
So I also think that for many women has been a really helpful construct to recognize that they might have a libido and a desire that's going to respond to the situation as opposed to just come out of nowhere. But stress is important. And I think that's it's because so often we're deprioritizing our own selves and our own pleasure. And I think for many women, often not even just deprioritizing, thinking that we don't even get to have it. There's not even permission to have desire.
Exactly. And I was going to say that permission piece is so, I don't know why we think we have to have that permission. Society built that into us, but we don't need permission. However, we think we do, right? So what happens to sexuality when someone spends all day caregiving, managing schedules, carrying that emotional labor?
Well, all we're doing is giving to others, and it's a beautiful thing, and we should feel proud, and that is a part of what we do. But we're not giving anything to ourselves. And I think there's this disconnect. So if you don't see sex or intimacy as something that's also feeding you, then it just becomes one more obligation or one more thing you're doing in service of another person. So not only is it the permission, I think it's also really critical that women go, okay, wait, I need to like this. Like, I need to enjoy this. I get to enjoy it. I get to have pleasure. And so if what I'm doing is not pleasurable, I owe that to myself to have that.
I know that for my population demographic that I work with, the women that, man, it's so much work. It's just, oh man, you have to take your clothes off. You have to get ready. You have to primp. You have to shave your legs. Da, da, da. It's just so much work. And then they don't get anything out of it. Like they're not,
Right.
their needs aren't taken care of. So what's the point of even doing it anyway? And do you see low desire as a symptom that something bigger may be happening emotionally?
Yes. I think low desire, you hear, okay, couples come to therapy and there's high libido and low libido. And so they're given tips or tools to meet in the middle. Okay, you want it 4 times a week, you want it twice, let's do it 3. And I think that's not addressing the underlying mechanics and the underlying components of it. And so what you just said, if you're not having very much sex and you're not enjoying it, each sexual encounter you just described, it becomes really fraught. There's all this pressure. Oh, I have to look a certain way. When did I eat? When did I last masturbate? Am I on my period? All sorts of stuff that you're like trying to plan for. And it keeps you in your head. It keeps you feeling like this is a performative act as opposed to something for yourself. And I think women, again, there's often at the point of motherhood, there's this identity shift where
Their erotic shifts.
I think often it's like, okay, I was a person with a sexual identity. I was a sexual being. I became a mother. And so it's zero sum. I cut off my sexual being. I add identity as mother, and never the two shall meet. And I think that's such a disservice to who we are as people, as women. I mean, I think our sexual agency is one of our greatest gifts and one of our greatest pleasures, but we are told to hang it up. Yeah.
And you talk about how motherhood can reshape your erotic identity. So what do you mean by that?
You become someone that is meant to be fully in service of others. And you become, the archetype of the perfect mother is the selfless mother.
Yes.
And I'm glad there's pushback. You can find it where it's put your own oxygen mask on first and all of these other things. I think that's really good. But for some reason, where some of that thinking I feel like is falling short is we're sort of stuck at, okay, great. Make sure you have time with your girlfriends and make sure you go to the gym or make sure
self-care.
You get a pedicure. Self-care is awesome. But we're not talking about our sexual selves. Like that is such a big component, not only of self-care, but of if you want to stay in love with your partner if you want this marriage or this relationship to work for the long haul, you need to be more than roommates. Really do.
Yes. So in your opinion, why do you think we struggle to reconnect with ourselves sexually after we have children? Like, what do you feel like the switch is in our head? I will, with the caveat of I never had that, only because I was a single mother and I wasn't having sex while I was pregnant. So I really had my baby. She was 100% mine. And so for me, I guess I never really had that disconnect because I didn't have it to begin with. For you, why do you feel like women feel that way?
I think it does go back to the messaging that we receive, right? And it's explicit and implicit everywhere. It's in the media, it's in the books, it's in any religion you might have grown up with. It's across the board that mothers, this Madonna whore thing, you become a mother and you are pure, and anything that has to do with sex is no longer valid. It's dirty, it's bad, even though it's totally human. So there's the messaging. And then I also think we can't disregard there are literally physical changes. And that's really important. I think some women can walk around feeling like, oh, I should still feel sexy, but your body's literal purpose has shifted.
Yeah.
And it takes, I want women to cut themselves some slack too, in the sense that to do both things, to be a caregiver and to continue to be a sexual being, it takes intention.
Yes.
And it takes active awareness to push back against the message that says hang it up. And so we're asking women to really fight a construct on a daily basis to think they're still sexy, to feel sexy, to breastfeed and still have an erotic self. It's
overwhelming.
Order. Yes.
Yes. And then the number one, constantly being needed by somebody, something all day, every day, the being touched out. I talk to so many women who have never really even heard the term touched out. And so when I say, oh, you're touched out, they're like, what do you mean? I was like, you've been touched too much. Like kids are hung on you, people in your face. And it's one of those things where this is not a conversation that's just common knowledge. And again, we have babies. It's like when you get married, you get married, now go have sex. Okay. But
You're right.
I was supposed
It's
to wait,
supposed to be
right?
amazing.
How do women reconnect with the parts of themselves that existed before motherhood, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, they don't lose that connection of, and you're a good example of that. But if they have, I think that's where there are also these pieces, and I'm sure you hear this, where sex is, it's sort of like breastfeeding for women who do that too. Like it's supposed to be natural. It's supposed to be this thing that you just do. Yep. When in reality, you have to figure it out. You need to learn about it. You need lubrication. It's hard. And sex and maintaining that piece of you, there's a practice component and there's a piece about it that it's just, you need to continue to invest and nurture that part of yourself. Because if you don't, I do think that's where some women can go, oh, was I ever that person? Like, was I ever interested in it? But if you're able to say, okay, there's these periods of time where I am breastfeeding and my body is in service and I'm so proud of that piece of what my body can do. But guess what? I also have this other side of my body and I get to use it for intimacy and pleasure. And that's so powerful that I have all of these pieces of me and I get to harness it. I wish women would see that as this power and this agency that they have.
For you, as both a therapist and a mother of 3, how has your understanding of desire evolved over time?
I think one of the biggest things that became very clear to me at the onset of motherhood and throughout is that sex is something that I find, and I think many women can find, as a stress reliever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a big thing that is kind of misplaced in desire, which is that it comes after everything else is solid and easy in your life, and then your desire can grow. And for me, I really noticed this piece around sex, sort of like the self-care piece, that sex made me feel better. It gave me a stress relief that was really essential to me, that I found really important. And it became something I sought as a protective factor against all the other stuff going on in my life, and sort of a buffer that allowed me to stay having a sense of who I was and not getting lost, which is, I think, what so many women, they feel like they've lost themselves. And so I think desire and stress are really related, but I actually see sex and desire as a way to mitigate and protect against stress instead of the thing that dies because of stress.
Tell me more. How can we make
Yeah.
it a more common practice?
Well, there's certainly some physiological things that go to it, right? So if you're having an orgasm, you're releasing oxytocin and sometimes serotonin. Oxytocin is that lovey-dovey intimacy hormone. So physically, if the sex is good, right? If there's pleasure involved, which is important, then you're physically going to feel better. It will get you out of an adrenaline cortisol state. It will give you that lovey-dovey connective feeling. That's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It also simply gives you some time to be a grown-up, whether it's solo play or with a partner. You are being an adult, you are thinking adult thoughts, you are engaging in adult play, you are doing something for yourself. All of those things are ways to keep your identity and to buffer against that stress.
So before we continue today's conversation, I want to tell everyone about the most requested resource that we have at Evolve Your Intimacy. Discovering infidelity can feel like emotional whiplash. One moment you're planning your future and the next you're questioning everything you thought you knew about your relationship. The truth is, most couples don't fail after infidelity because healing is impossible. They fail because they don't have a roadmap. And that's exactly what I created with the Infidelity Recovery Bootcamp. This is an online program that helps couples move through the chaos, rebuild emotional safety, improve communication, establish healthy boundaries, and determine whether genuine healing is possible. So whether you're trying to rebuild trust or simply understand what happened, you'll receive practical tools that you can start using immediately. To learn more, visit evolveyourintimacy.com and click on the Infidelity Recovery Bootcamp. Now, let's get back to our conversation. And for those of you just joining us, we are speaking with Carolyn Hood, and we are talking about the emotional load that intimacy and relationships, but just stress. I mean, we're just talking about being a woman today. And so
Yes.
let's talk about the elephant in the room. Many who tell me that they're struggling with desire are often struggling with resentment. And how are these two things connected, in your opinion?
Well, they're intimately connected, right? So it's hard to want somebody that you also feel like you can't even look at, right?
Yeah.
That you're so agitated or aggravated by them, but then you also want to have sex with them. Those two things are at odds for most people, not all, but for most, right? So there is that awareness and knowledge of, all right, you have to be working well as a team, as a unit. You have to be sharing the household duties. And that comes from a place of respect, right? So I look at that. The cognitive load issue is respect. That's really what I think it comes down to. So each partner needs to respect the other's needs and make sure that that household is running smoothly. And that often is breaking down around gender norms and gender rules and who does. And it's so fraught and it's so tense. So that resentment is really, really big. So couples have to enter into those conversations of, okay, how do we respect one another and respect this household? I do think there's one of my perspectives that I hear often is that you must solve the emotional intimacy in order to get to the physical intimacy, that it's this first comes emotional, then comes physical, sort of unidirectional, A, then B.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there is an opportunity to look at it a bit more as a feedback loop and look at it a bit more as physical intimacy can, as we just talked about with the oxytocin and all of that, physical intimacy can support and drive some emotional intimacy. And the perspective that you must solve all of the emotional components, I think that's a setup to fail too, because we're all works in progress. Like once you think you've solved it, a new thing pops up. So that I think is setting couples up to fail because it's never going to be fully healed, fully perfect, right? And then you're preventing that sexual intimacy as a way to back to that buffer, back to that supportive component of sex. So all of that is just, it's so intertwined. It's not these distinct boxes that we carry around.
And there are some signs that a couple is struggling. So in your opinion, what are those signs that their sexual struggles are actually relationship struggles?
That's where the digging comes in. We talked about the couple that comes in with different libido, and then you break it down and you go, oh, you don't flirt with me anymore. Why do I always have to tell you what the kids' soccer schedule is? I don't like having to do that. How come you're always on your phone? I think there's so much that we carry around that we don't broach with our partners. We feel sad, we feel rejected because they're not flirting, they're not making advances. And instead of going to your partner and saying, hey, I love you so much, I love our kids, I love our family, and I miss the sexual connection we used to have, and I miss that sexual side of me. I miss wanting you, and I miss being wanted. Instead of coming to a conversation with that sort of invitation to connect again, often it's, how come you never, want to have sex anymore? How come you're always looking at your phone? Or how come? And that gets straight to a defense mechanism, right? It's not an invitation to connect. It's sort of an invitation to defend your ego. But that's these conversations that couples need to have. And when they're not, they're just spinning the stories in their head, right? And so they're saying, well, he must think I've gained weight, or he must be attracted to somebody else, or he must, who knows? But without checking them out.
So one of the things when people come in with a mismatched libido, I always ask, number one, have you had your hormones checked? I'm really good at my job, but I can't compete against hormones. And then the second thing I always ask is, are you having the sex you want to have? Or are you having the sex you feel like you have to have? And most of the time I ask that question, the men like, oh, what are you saying? I'm not good. But the women feel so relieved when they finally get the opportunity to say, no, I'm not. So what kind of sex do you want to have? And I think that sex before becoming a mother was completely different than sex after motherhood or after I had my daughter. And so for us, we get into that mindset of it's just another day. I just got to make it. I just got to feed the
Yeah.
kid. My body is whatever. We'll get there. Everything will be okay.
Yeah.
But then after like 18 years, you're looking back going, what the hell just happened? And we're not sure where to go from there.
I think your sexual desire and what you like and what you find pleasurable, that will evolve. So that's one thing. It's going to evolve. It's not a set it and forget it. You might have been really into something in your 20s that now you're like, it doesn't really for me anymore, because we change, and that's fun. So we should look at that as fun as opposed to, oh gosh, what happened, or this
more
thing
work.
Definitely be advocates for your health, for the hormones. But what you said is that, okay, so I love that couples are coming in and you're saying, are you having the sex you want to have? And what I find is most women, when they're asked that question, they have a blank. They
Just
don't
go
even
stone cold.
know.
And you see this blank expression come over their face and you hit it. But
yes, but I'm supposed to be a woman and I'm supposed to be coy and I'm not supposed to talk about what I want. And I don't even have language to discuss it. It's dirty.
I appreciate it and I love it and I have great sex. So would you like to have good sex too? I mean, it's just the way we think about it.
Exactly. And it's going back to, I just think this is normal. We are humans. We are animals. Sex is play. Sex is universal. If we're consenting and we're adults, then it's all normal.
Exactly.
But we have no language. We have no skill for that. And we have so much shame. And so it's no wonder we're walking into 10 years after having kids going, I have no idea what I like, what I'm into, but I'm pretty sure this is not that fun. I'm pretty sure this isn't what I'm watching on the TV shows when everybody's just tearing clothing off. I'm pretty sure that's not how I feel.
I feel like that's also traditional sex therapy. One thing I appreciate about your work is that you challenge that simplistic advice. I mean, sex therapy, we can't go by one rule book because every body is different. Everything is different. And so for you, what do you think is missing from that traditional sex advice?
Well, there's so much curiosity that's often missing. There's straight to the how-tos of oh, try this role play, try this candles, buy flowers and flirt a couple times. And none of that is bad. Like, that's
need
fine.
you to do that and more.
But how are we entering into conversations that are vulnerable and curious and saying, I was reading this thing and I don't even know if I like it, but something confused me about it. Even just starting with a vulnerable conversation. And traditional sex therapy, and I think other just traditional advice, misses the piece of, that is a scary conversation. This is the person, you can go on Reddit and maybe share that with a stranger. And if they think you're weird, but if you share something with a partner who you've been married to and share finances and a home and a kids with, and they look at you and think you're weird, that is a injury. And that is very scary. And so I also, again, really want to affirm people and say, it's normal that you're really scared to bring these things up. This is a very fraught topic, but we have to start from that place of vulnerability and curiosity and normalizing that whatever you might be into or confused about is normal.
Exactly.
That it's normal to just have this expansive array of sexual interests and needs and fears. That is so normal.
Well, and even when you go to your general practitioner or your gynecologist and you want to talk about sex, they go blank. And I've sat down with many of them and interviewed many over my podcasting lifetime. And one of the things they've all told me is we've only had 4 hours of human sexuality.
Right.
4 hours of human sexuality. That's not sex therapy. That's not sexual dysfunction. That's not, nothing. It's human sexuality. Why do we do what we do? Right. And so people think that you're going to your doctors to have these fruitful conversations, but they don't know. And so they think, well, take a Viagra. I've had women tell me, my doctor told me to drink a glass of wine before sex. Her doctor told her that. And it's go buy lingerie. Well, why can't we have that conversation about what we like? And I joke about this a lot. I'm like, so you will stick somebody's nasty body part in your mouth, but you won't open it to use your voice. You're okay with sticking something nasty.
I love it.
But actually saying something causes you physical or emotional harm. Let's think about that.
I love that visual. And it's such a good reflection of how strong the messages are that we receive, how much women are conditioned to perform in sex and to think about what's going to keep this man or get this man or make this man happy or whatever the case may be. And we are not conditioned or supported by any stretch to think about what is it that I want and what do I need? And then, as you said, we go to doctors and they don't have the acumen or vocabulary for it. So we're just lost, just completely lost.
You did mention role-playing fantasies, that type of stuff. For me, one of the most liberating things was when I discovered BDSM and kink, because I got to rewrite it helped me heal a lot of trauma. I got to work past a lot of things, written lots of articles about it. But one of the most interesting topics that you talk about specifically is the rise of romantasy. So why are so many women turning to that literature and smut right now?
Well, it's meeting a need, right? Like any human behavior, it leaves clues. It's communication. So it's meeting a need. And that need is really hopeful, is that there is desire, there is sexual libido, there is sexual agency, there is something in these women in their 40s and 50s in midlife that's being awakened by these stories and these fantasies. And some women don't know why, some women do. It spans the gamut, but it's hitting a nerve. And if we can dig into that and we can go, oh, okay, so like that's still alive in me. Maybe I didn't even realize it, but I'm
exactly.
Really
maybe you hadn't even known it.
And it doesn't have to be elaborate kink and BDSM. It doesn't have to be elaborate role play, but simply saying, oh, okay, this is kind of fun. After I read this, I feel kind of excited. What if I read this with my partner? What if I go read it and then invite him upstairs 30 minutes later? What if I just say, hey, I've been really into this lately. Just start to dip your toes back into this conversation. And these books can just be such a great entry point into that.
And it's not about sex at all. It's about igniting something inside of you that maybe you didn't even know. And now all of a sudden you're like, ooh, well, that kind of tickled something different. And again, being able to say, I don't know really how to do this. I just read this in a book. Let's read it together and see what you think and come up with a common language. And I think another big thing that I'm huge on with my clients is that common language. So I may say something to you, attraction. Okay. So my definition of attraction may be one thing, while your definition of attraction may be another. And we never talk about it. But we've been using the term attraction with two different meanings this whole relationship. And now it's not what we thought it was. And now it's an issue. And so having like, I don't care if you have to get out and write down terms, attraction, and then common definition. And maybe you have a term sheet or something that you can go by. But if you don't have that vocabulary, you have to learn it. But you can call it whatever you want to, as long as you are talking about it.
Yes. Somewhere along the way, there was this idea that, well, if sex is meant to be and so organic, then you shouldn't have to talk about it. But I have my own ideas of what words mean. And certainly, I mean, if for heterosexual couples, oh my gosh, at the very least, let's make sure we're not defining sex as just penetrative sex.
Sex is so much more than penetration.
It's still such a common thing that, okay, sex it's the bases, it's get to penis and vagina, and oral sex is foreplay, which is also, that would be on my definition of absolutely not. Oral sex is an outcome on its own. It's not just a pathway to get to penetration. But you're right. I mean, take the word intimacy. I think that you could go for a year probably to therapy and say, how are we really defining that? Is that physical? Is it emotional? Is it all of it? Well, hand holding, no, that's just friendly. Oh, but the other person, it's intimate. So you take two distinct people and you're trying to create the shared experience. You need that shared vocabulary. Absolutely.
So your subtitle of your book, Reclaiming desire as an act of female empowerment. What does that mean to you?
To me, our sexual selves, being sexual agents as a woman, is one of the most powerful and empowering things we can do, because it is something that has been so subjugated over time. And so saying, no, it's not about just men, and I'm not going to just do what I'm told, and I'm not just going to perform and be sexy and appear sexy, but don't be sexual. I should look a certain way. Yeah, but I shouldn't behave a certain way. So when I think about us as human beings, these fundamental pieces of who we are as humans, and women have been told that no, you don't get to be like, men get to be sexual agents, but not women. So when I think about sex, it's not dirty and it's not salacious. It's not shaming. It is such an empowering component of who we are. And I wish every woman would embrace that and go, oh, right, like, I deserve this. I deserve this. And everyone would benefit from that, not just women. Everyone would benefit from that.
What do you hope that readers feel after finishing your book?
Oh, I hope they feel hopeful. I hope that woman that's going, I think I want again, but I have no idea my way out of this predicament. I hope they read it and just go, okay, all right, here we are. I'm in my mid-40s. I got a lot of life left to live, and it's not over. And there is hope, and I get to still have this piece of me. That's my hope is hope.
Yeah. I love that you said, I'm in my 40s, my life isn't over, because so many people feel like that. I'm in my 40s, my life. Bitch, please, you're in your 40s. If you want to live, you got 40 more years left. Why are we just giving it up now? Let's go. We got at least, hopefully.
No kidding. Hopefully at least half.
Let's kick this thing into gear. That should mean that we should live more and not, oh, my life is over. And I think that, people think, oh, well, I've had kids and my kids are grown and now I have nothing left. Find new chapters, write new chapters of your life. These chapters are not going to write yourself. So if you are letting life live around you, but you're not living it, what are you doing? Or what you need. So, Carolyn, if there was one message that you hoped our listeners would walk away with today, especially from just all of the things we've talked about, especially those who feel disconnected from desire, what would that be?
That we deserve it. That women deserve it. We must give ourselves permission to have desire, to allow ourselves the space and time to recreate it. And it is not selfish. It is a beautiful, valuable thing, and we all deserve it.
That is very well said. And first, I want to thank you for joining us, but also my listeners, thank you guys. And if today's conversation really resonated with you, I want you to remember that desire isn't something that you have or you don't have. It's something that lives within a larger ecosystem, and your stress matters. Your mental health matters. Your identity matters. Your relationship matters. And perhaps most importantly, your pleasure matters too. A healthy, intimate relationship isn't built by performing desire. It's built by creating the conditions where desire can safely return or be built. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone you think needs to hear this conversation. You can learn more about Carolyn Hood and her upcoming book, Sex Begets Sex, at desireinreallife.com. And if you're looking for therapy, workshops, online courses, relationship resources, all of that, visit evolveyourintimacy.com. Until next time, keep evolving, keep communicating, and keep choosing intimacy one conversation at a time.